Welcome back, friends. Joining us this morning in the studio is former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development and now, of course, 2020 presidential candidate Julián Castro. Welcome back. Good morning.
Good to be with you all.
Good to see you again.
How are you? Good to see you.
Great. Yeah.
Let's start off by talking impeachment, all right? Something you are for.
I am.
What would you say to folks that say impeachment's something that would blow back, actually, on Democrats?
I would say that fundamentally the question is about whether a president is going to be held accountable and held to the rule of law, and that the Mueller report pointed out 10 instances where this president tried to obstruct justice. And basically, if you read the Mueller report, he put that question into the hands of Congress. So they're going to have their congressional hearings and subpoena Bob Mueller, do more inquiry. But at the end of the day, I think the question you're going to get to is, this president tried to obstruct justice, and should he be held accountable or not? And I believe that he should be held accountable. The other thing I would say is that we can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? There's an election that's coming up in November of 2020. I'm one of the candidates. I'm going out there and I'm talking every day to people about health care, about jobs, about education, about the things that they need to make sure that they can prosper in the 21st century. So we can press the case for impeachment and also let people know what our vision for the future is of this country, a strong, positive agenda.
All right, let me ask you this. You were kind of early out of the gate on impeachment. I would say you're one of the first people calling it, if not the first. Do you feel like you were overshadowed a little bit by Elizabeth Warren and some of these other folks that are calling for it now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the important thing, is to something like this is that you have to let people know where you stand. And so I was just happy that I had a chance to let people know where I stand. And there's a difference of opinion, I think, among some of the candidates, and certainly up in Congress. I know that they're kind of tying themselves up in knots right now about what they should do. But to me, it's clear that you have a president that has tried to break the law, and he's done it in ways that we haven't seen in a very long time. The defense right now is basically that he's Fredo instead of Michael, that people didn't respect him enough to carry out his orders, and that's why they didn't actually fully break the law. But that's not an excuse for his conduct. And so I believe that he should be held accountable.
But to the point of being overshadowed by other candidates, it does pose logistical challenges in terms of fundraising, visibility, media coverage. So how are you confident that you'll be able to go the distance in that way?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, we have 42 weeks until the Iowa caucus, but who's counting? Who's counting? Except those of us who are running. Right? So, what I'm trying to do is to steadily build support, and I'm not fazed that I'm not the front runner on April 23rd of 2019. What I'm trying to do is organize well in these early states, develop a campaign that can, go the distance. And we've seen our fundraising accelerate. We've seen our political support accelerate. I can tell that when I get out there to crowds in Iowa or New Hampshire or Nevada, I'm gaining traction. So I feel good about that. I also think the debates are going to be a great opportunity to get a lot of attention and exposure for all of the candidates. But I believe that I can stand out because I have a positive, compelling vision for the future of the country.
Okay. Something that stood out to me as someone who grew up in the state of Texas, I grew up in North Texas, is of course you represent, the Lone Star State, as does Beto, and you are Latino, yet it seems like he's gotten an outsized portion of attention as this, the border state candidate. So when are you going to surpass him in the conversation, and what will that moment look like?
Well, I mean, my vision for the future of the race is that we're going to steadily build support. The first caucus is on February 3rd, 2020. This is going to sound odd, but this is a part of presidential campaigns, is that right now the expectations for me are lower, right? For some people, they're very high expectations. I believe that I'm going to be able to meet and then exceed the expectations for me and create stronger and stronger support, while others are not able to meet their expectations. And so in the dynamic of these presidential campaigns, they lose support.
So the attention's almost a bit of
That's right. And so, my vision for this campaign is that we continue to build support, and that somewhere later in the year or early next year, you'll see those lines cross.
All right. That's interesting. I'm glad you brought up expectations, though. What would you say about the ways in which the media is covering male candidates as opposed to the way that they're covering the women that are in this race? Because I do feel like there are different expectations.
No doubt. I just read a great article that Rebecca Traister wrote, And there's no question, right, that we've seen a lot of the double standards that apply to women being applied in this campaign. And while that's unfortunate, I also think that we just have a set of totally badass female candidates that are breaking barriers and represent the present and the future of the party. It's going to be very meaningful that in 2020 we're going to mark 100 years since women's suffrage in this country, and to have this groundbreaking field of female candidates. So what we see with the Democratic Party is that it's a party that truly is the big tent party in this country. Whether you take Pete Buttigieg or my candidacy or Kamala Harris or a number of people, you see the diversity of this country in full.
And you see it reflected. I agree with you there. Let me ask you this, though, sir. You're a father of two.
Yeah.
How do you think you would juggle the highest office in the land with being a parent?
Yeah, I think that President Obama set a very good example of, at least as I understand it, right? He would make time just about every night to spend dinner time with his family before, retiring to his study to go over whatever he had to go over for the next day. This is when presidents still studied what they needed to study to be ready for the next day. But he put that effort into being a good father. And that's the kind of president that I would want to be, who is able to make time to be with my family. As it is right now, like all the other candidates, I'm on the road a lot. But I treasure the time that I do get with my kids. We had a good Easter the other day. And, those are very precious moments these days. But I would try and make sure that I don't lose sight of the most important things, even if you're in a position as important as being the president of the United States.
So not sleeping a lot. Got it.
Can't have it all.
That too, yeah. Sleep deprivation helps.
Okay.
That's true.
That's fair. Here's a tweet from Texas Monthly. A source close to Julián Castro told Carlos Sanchez the Democratic congressman is all but certain to go after John Cornyn's Senate seat in 2020. Your brother announced that you were running for president, and so we want to ask you both, are you ready to announce he's running for John Cornyn's seat? But also, how do you two interact as two brothers, prominent brothers, in politics? There is an interesting history of this. Do you go over each other's speeches? Is he criticizing your very boring tweets?
Is it rivalry?
Basically, I tell him what to do.
Okay.
All right?
Oh, wow!
So I am 1 minute older than my brother, and I have almost zero big brother credibility with him, but he's thinking about running for Senate against Cornyn. I'm very proud of my brother. He served 10 years in the Texas legislature, and this is his 7th year in Congress. This is the first time that he's ever been in the majority, throughout his time in public service, but he's distinguishing himself on the Intelligence Committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee. He's the Congressional Hispanic Caucus chair this year. He's going to make a decision in the next few days about whether he's going to run or not. I won't do to him what he did to me, which is preemptively announce what we're going to do. I'll leave that up to him.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, I'll the courtesy of an older brother here by 1 minute. But it's fascinating. The other day he came over and we were talking about this Senate race, and we grew up sharing bunk beds, and then we went to college together. We went to law school together. We had our own little law firm for a time. We're still very close, but I don't get to see my brother as much as I did because he has his family. I have my family. Right. I'm traveling for the campaign. He's shuttling between San Antonio and D.C. So I really enjoy the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with him when I can.
Well, so I did want to also ask you about your tweets because they're very boring. I'm going to be very honest with you. Your Instagram account is even more boring because you do screenshots of your tweets, which no one's there. Yeah. Stop it.
There you go.
But here's the reason I want to ask is we've seen recently, of course, Trump uses Twitter in a very specific way, but, Democratic Congress people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have shown us that it can have a transformative impact on the conversation. So is that something you're interested in? Are you trying to engage Twitter in a different way than maybe?
We are, and we've started to use video more, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, even though, that's kind of a different platform. What I'm interested in and what I'm sort of grappling with is that I would like during the course of this campaign to figure out a way to go beyond the sort of candidate-centric Instagram or Twitter that is and I think all of us have done this, me included, is look at me as a candidate and what I'm doing, and really take the lens and focus it more on the people that we're trying to help, the people whose lives we're trying to help. And how do you do that in a way that's just as engaging and, fits into those platforms in a compelling way? That is what I would like to achieve during the course of the campaign. I would be lying if we said that during the campaign or where we're at now, we're anywhere near that. We're not. But ideally, that's what we would achieve.
So something almost more akin to just it's the only thing that's coming to mind, but like Humans of New York, but except it's like maybe your constituents and their stories.
I'll give you an example. When I was HUD secretary, I came out here and I did participated in the point-in-time count, which is the annual count to go and, unfortunately, to take stock of how many people are sleeping on the streets. So for the purpose of federal funding, right? And I thought when I did that, it was like 12:30 in the morning, 1 in the morning, super cold outside. The stories that all of the people represent as human beings, and also about the urgency of what we need to do, from the federal government's perspective. How would you tell those stories in a compelling way as a candidate through the use of those platforms like Instagram or Twitter? That's partly about you as a candidate and what you would do, but really it's more about the people that you're trying to fight for. And I don't know that anybody yet has really figured that out and done that in a compelling way. And I'd like to experiment with that.
That is much more thoughtful than I'm just going to put some more dogs on it. So shout out to you, sir.
That too. We'll do that too. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Julián Castro, thank you again so much for joining us this morning. It's always great for you guys to come back.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Absolutely.
All right.